Hey, what is going on, guys? What's up, YouTube? It's Johnny with Rules for Rebels, back with episode 54 of Side Hustle Tuesdays. Now, I think you guys are really going to love today's story for a couple reasons. First off, it's about a dude who makes bows and arrows with PVC pipe. Pretty darn cool. And as I was preparing for today's episode, I was watching some YouTube videos of people showing how to do this, as well as shooting some of these, and man, are they powerful. Now, this isn't some kiddie bow and arrow you make for your 5-year-old nephew to play cowboys and Indians. These things shoot with pretty much the equivalent power and force that the Native Americans used to take down deer and elk. And from the videos I was watching, they seem to be pretty accurate as well. They're made with either PVC pipe or in some cases PVC pipe with driveway markers inside, which make them a bit stronger and shoot even harder and further. Now, the funny thing about today's story, today's side hustler actually learned how to make these from watching YouTube videos himself as well. So today's story is also interesting in that it started off as a drop shipping hustle, but expanded into today's side hustler also making and manufacturing these bows himself, leaving himself a lot more room for profit. So today's story is about Jeremy Bays. Jeremy has loved bows and arrows ever since he first read the Robin Hood novel as a kid. By day, Jeremy is a computer teacher, but by night, he's a bow maker. Jeremy makes bows out of about $2 worth of PVC plastic and sells them for $30 or more at Renaissance fairs, on eBay, and through his own Shopify store. As a kid, Jeremy would find sticks and he'd make bows. He did this until he finally managed to save up enough allowance and birthday money to buy his first used fiberglass bow. Now, after high school, he got busy with life and work and everything else and kind of forgot about the hobby, but it always lingered in his mind, and he always had an interest in archery and bows. So after Jeremy and his wife had their first kid, he was strapped for cash, and one day while browsing online sites about archery, he found a site which featured English longbows. Now, he wanted to get back into archery, but he didn't have the money to buy one, so he contacted the site owner to see if he could possibly barter something for a new bow. So he emailed the site owner and asked if he could barter something, and it just so happened that the 65-year-old man who ran the site wasn't too tech savvy and was actually looking to expand his online presence and was looking for a way to sell more bows online. So what Jeremy did, Jeremy helped the site owner improve his own site, or the bow maker improve his own site, and Jeremy also started his own website selling bows, which were made by this gentleman. So Jeremy was going to use the bow maker as his drop shipper. Jeremy and the bow maker agreed that for the bows Jeremy sold, he would keep 20% and forward the remaining 80% to the bow maker via PayPal. Jeremy began selling bows, and it was a great arrangement. From the start of the entire process of Jeremy getting an order, forwarding it to the bow maker, it took only about 10 minutes, and as Jeremy streamlined his process, it became even quicker. So this went on for the next several years, and it was a great arrangement for both Jeremy and the bow maker. The bow maker got to sell more bows, and Jeremy could work and make money when he wanted to, and kind of just, coast and let the orders roll in when he was busy with life and his kid and his wife. Then, however, one day, the bow maker decided to retire, and this kind of put a wrench in Jeremy's plans. So when the bow maker retired, Jeremy still had 3 outstanding orders for bows. So his partner, the bow maker, emailed Jeremy detailed instructions, and Jeremy went to work. Now, the bow maker had things down to a science, making a bow in about an hour, but for Jeremy, things didn't go quite so smoothly. Jeremy's first bow making attempt took about 2 weeks, as opposed to the bow maker's 1-hour job, and after several broken pieces of wood, he finally had a bow, but Jeremy quickly realized this wasn't going to work out, so he canceled the 2 remaining orders. Now, this was kind of the end of Jeremy's side hustle for several years. Now, one quick thing I wanted to point out about today's side hustle is it originally started out as a drop shipping side hustle. However, as opposed to drop shipping random junk from AliExpress and as opposed to just drop shipping items from Bed Bath & Beyond or Walmart or Newegg or GearBest, Jeremy actually had a relationship with his drop shipper, and I think in large part that's what attributed to a lot of Jeremy's early success, that and also having unique product. Now, this is a message I've been pushing a lot lately, is don't just randomly pick products from companies or sites that don't even know you exist and try to drop ship them. I think you'll get a lot further if you find a company with a unique product and reach out to them as Jeremy did and see if they would be open to drop shipping for you, at which point you can negotiate, your margin or your cost on those bows, or I'm sorry, on bows, on whatever it is you want to sell. So I think this is going to give you a much larger chance of success, and I think it's also a much better way to build a long-term sustainable business. Anyhow, however, getting back to the story, about 3 years went by where Jeremy had dropped this side hustle by the wayside. A few years later, however, Jeremy saw a YouTube video of a guy building bows out of PVC sprinkler pipe. The guy also happened to have a book called The Impossible Bow, so Jeremy watched a lot of YouTube videos on the subject, and he also bought this book and set off on learning this method of making bows out of PVC pipe. Jeremy could make a bow in about 40 minutes, less than what the bow maker he had partnered with earlier was able to make him in, and best of all, it only cost him about $2 in materials. The startup costs were minimal. Jeremy's only real expense was a $40 heat gun, and from the YouTube videos I was watching, that isn't even necessary. You can literally do this with nothing more than a PVC pipe, a file, and some paracord. One day, Jeremy noticed a Renaissance fair was coming to town, so he inquired how much a booth would be, as he thought that would be a good place to sell his bows. It turned out the cost was a few $1,000s, which Jeremy didn't have, so he contacted the people running the festival and decided to see if they'd be willing to barter. So he'd bring his bartering skills back in again. Well, it just so happened that they actually needed some prizes for an archery contest that they were holding as part of the Renaissance Fair, so Jeremy volunteered to provide the bows that he made as prizes, and they gave him a booth spot at the festival for the next 2 weekends in return for the prizes. Jeremy bought a pop-up tent at the flea market. He got some fake vines from Hobby Lobby along with a couple yards of some Renaissance themed kind of looking fabric, and he decorated his booth. That first weekend he made over $800. So Jeremy's business has continued to grow. He sells his bows at local Renaissance festivals and makes about $800 per month doing that. He also sells them on eBay as well as through his own Shopify store, which also bring in a few $100s per month each as well. Jeremy's working with his hands, he's doing something he loves, and he's making some valuable side money, which is great for either putting into an emergency fund or sometimes splurging with. And he's continuing to grow his business as well. Now, I know what a lot of you guys are probably thinking. Early on in this story, wouldn't it have been better if Jeremy had just learned to make the bows himself and cut out the bow maker? Well, sure, I suppose. However, the process of making bows early on didn't go well for Jeremy. But regardless, this kind of illustrates the beauty of a side hustle. It started out at a time in his life when Jeremy was very busy, and it started out with dropshipping, so it was pretty passive, it was pretty hands-off, and the beauty of that is Jeremy could work when he had free time or needed money, and he could take a step back when he didn't. When his partner retired, several years went by before he got back into it, but he figured out an easier way to make bows and began to make his own. This also happened to be a time in his life when he had a bit more free time. Point being, this is one of the beautiful things about a side hustle. They're adaptable, and they can kind of change and transition to serve whatever needs you have in your life at any given time. Now, before we wrap up, if any of you guys are interested in trying to make your own bow, I'll link to a pretty cool video from a dude showing how to make them. This guy's method looks pretty cool as he only needed a file, no heat guns or any other equipment. And I also liked how he incorporated driveway markers. You guys know those like, red neon or, red or yellow, flexible, what do you call it? Plexiglass is the wrong word, but the things that go at the end of your driveway to kind of show people where your driveway is. He incorporates those into the inside of his bows, which I guess adds some power and some strength, and also makes the bows last a little bit longer. Now, one other thing I should mention, I'll also link you guys to another video called Don't Make a PVC Bow Without Watching This Video First. And a guy shows how weak or poor quality PVC pipe can wind up splintering shards of plastic into your face, which is kind of scary. So he kind of shows you how to do a simple test with a hammer to check the strength of the PVC pipe you're working with before making a bow. And apparently, even if you buy the same pipe from a good company, one length of pipe that you buy this week could be perfectly good, whereas, if you run back to Home Depot and buy some PVC pipe next week, even from the same manufacturer, that stuff could be the weak stuff that splinters. So he shows you kind of a simple test that you can do with, just by hitting the PVC pipe with a hammer to check the strength before you make a bow so that you can make sure you don't wind up with plastic shards in your face. Anyhow, guys, I thought today's story was a fun one for a couple reasons. First, because these bows are just so badass. And secondly, because it started off as a dropshipping hustle and transitioned into something much, much larger. Anyhow, guys, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the story. I hope you were inspired. And until next time, this is Johnny with Rules for Rebels, signing off.